Welcome to episode 4 of The Prophet's Red Robe. If this is your first time here, I strongly suggest you begin with episodes 1 through 3. You'll want to experience the full journey, including the secrets and shadows that lead up to this moment. But whether you're stepping into this world for the first time or returning for more, I'm glad you're here. Now, take a breath. Let the noise fade and prepare yourself. Because in episode 4, everything begins to change. Wanjiku and Brian arrived in Kapenguria just after noon. The town was modest, nestled among hills and gently swept by soft winds. They checked into a small lodge near the center. Low budget, quiet, forgettable. Perfect. The next morning, they made their way to the Uhuru Memorial Library inside the Kapenguria Museum, the last place the sketchbook had reportedly been seen. They searched for hours. Shelves creaked under the weight of aging volumes, dusty catalogues, and records of colonial trials. But there was no sign of the sketchbook. They asked the librarian, then a museum curator. Blank stares, polite shrugs, apologies. One assistant said, "It's not listed anywhere in the archive logs." "Are you sure it was this library?" Defeated, they stepped out into the street, weighed down by disappointment. But just as they turned the corner, they heard footsteps behind them. "Excuse me?" An older woman, maybe in her 60s, hurried after them. "I heard you asking about the sketchbook," she said, her voice edged with urgency. "Can I ask, why are you looking for it? If you're willing to talk, we should go somewhere quieter." Cautious, but curious, they led her to a nearby quiet bar. They all sat down. She looked at them. "So, tell me the truth. Why the sketchbook?" Brian took a breath, then smiled. "We're researchers," he began, "studying traditional medicine and longevity. In an old library in Nairobi, we found records about Chinese communities where people lived past 120. One reference mentioned a sketchbook here in Kapenguria, documenting a man who aged unusually slowly, possibly the same age for decades. We just want to understand if it's true, how he lived, what he ate, if there's something the world can learn." She stared at them for a long moment, then looked away. "Yes, there was a sketchbook," she said softly. "I saw it myself years ago. But then, rumors started." She glanced around and lowered her voice. "A man came, foreign but fluent in Swahili, offered a large sum to anyone who could remove the sketchbook from the museum. No one knows if someone actually did it. But after that, everyone started pretending the book never existed. They all kept the secret. I went along with it too, but I never got paid, and no one ever swore me to silence." Wanjiku leaned forward. "You saw the sketchbook yourself?" "I did." The woman nodded. "There was a drawing of a man from a village called Karual." She paused. "That village no longer exists. After years of drought and famine, people moved away. The place turned into dry shrubs. But the man, he didn't move." She hesitated again. There were whispers. Some say he didn't age, while others grew old. He remained the same, mid-40s, maybe early 50s. Then, the village emptied, and some say he made it empty, that he silenced the villagers to protect his secret. Brian and Wanjiku exchanged glances. Wanjiku reached into her pocket and handed the woman some cash. "Thank you," she said, "for trusting us." Back at the lodge, they packed immediately. Whether the information was true or not, they couldn't risk the woman talking, especially if someone came looking. They took motorbike taxis back to Autumn. That evening, while eating at a small restaurant, a man introduced himself as a local priest. Brian chatted casually with him over tea, until the priest invited them to visit his monastery the next morning. Brian was about to politely decline, but under the table, Wanjiku pressed her foot against his. She gave a tiny nod. "We'd love to," Brian said. The next morning, they arrived just after sunrise. The monastery was quiet, nestled in a grove of trees, with a gentle scent of earth and incense. Wanjiku asked to visit the library, claiming a love for old books. Brian requested a tour of the botanical gardens. The priest obliged, smiling warmly. As the two men left, Wanjiku moved fast through narrow rows of aged tomes, heading straight for the section marked pre-1910. She pulled out dusty journals, bound papers, her fingers flying. Then, she found it. A handwritten journal titled, "The Unbelievable Things My Parishioners Ever Told Me. Not during confession, so I can totally share this." She smiled. "I would have liked whoever wrote this. They seem fun." The journal began with light jokes, odd stories, and village gossip. But then, her eyes caught a page labelled, "A Story of a Man Who Never Aged, from Karual Village." She didn't waste a second, pulled out her phone, snapped photos of every page. She'd read it later. For now, time was everything. Just as she finished, she heard footsteps, Brian and the priest returning. She tucked the journal back exactly where she found it, stepped out, and smiled as if nothing had happened. They chatted a bit more, thanked the priest, then headed back to their lodge. By the time they reached the entrance, darkness had fallen, and then they saw them. 3 men, standing silently by the gate, not talking, not moving. Brian's body stiffened. "Are we imagining things?" Wanjiku shook her head. "I've learned never to ignore my gut. Not since I was 5. Something's wrong." She glanced at their backpacks. "All our important stuff is with us. Let's not risk it. Let's leave." Without another word, they turned and melted into the night. Several minutes passed in silence. Then, 2 motorbike taxis. They rode 15 kilometers out to a roadside village. There, a lone vendor's hut was still open. The owner let them rest inside for the night. They didn't sleep much. By dawn, they were back on motorbikes, headed to a larger town. From there, a public bus to Eldoret. And by evening, they were already on the road to Nairobi. But the memory of those 3 silent men still lingered. And somewhere in Wanjiku's phone, the story of a man who never aged waited to be read. As their bus zoomed toward Nairobi, the hum of the engine and the blur of passing towns gave Wanjiku a rare moment of stillness. She pulled out her phone, opened the gallery, and began reading the pages she had photographed at the monastery in autumn. It was a journal entry written by the priest, stories told to him by parishioners over the years, stories that had disturbed him deeply, but were never formally recorded. The story told of a man from Karual, a man who, for decades, never seemed to grow old. Parishioners said their parents, and even grandparents, remembered seeing him look the same. Tall, lean, sharp eyes, a deep voice. It all started when he joined a hunting trip with several men from the village. Only he came back. His explanation: vague. Something about wild animals, sudden rain, getting separated. No bodies were recovered. No straight answers given. Then, whispers began. And when villagers started disappearing under strange circumstances, no struggle, no trace. Fear replaced curiosity. People packed up, quietly left Karual. Eventually, the entire village dissolved. And the man? He remained. Until even his name faded from memory. The priest's notes continued. Years later, stories emerged across West Pokot and beyond of a wealthy, ageless man, seen in towns across Kenya, Uganda, even South Sudan, always under a different name. Sometimes he was a businessman, other times a preacher or a landowner, but always, he never aged. The elderly who remembered him from their youth swore it was the same man, but with no photos, no proof. The tale became folklore. Wanjiku's pulse quickened. She turned the phone toward Brian. He read in silence. His jaw tightened with every sentence. "We need to find out more," Wanjiku said. They didn't wait. Upon arriving in Nairobi, they went straight to a secluded, rarely used library on the city's outskirts. A friend had once told Wanjiku about it, an untouched collection, where one could still find uncatalogued documents and old newspapers from the early 1900s. Inside, they split up, diving into the archives. It didn't take long. They began spotting names with a recurring story pattern. Karanja in 1885, Mahmud in 1910, Daniel Baraka in 1956. Names appearing in strange reports across decades. Headlines like, "Local preacher's followers found dead after strange ritual in Lamu." Unmarked graves discovered in abandoned compound outside Kisumu. Authorities dismiss witchcraft claims in small Rift Valley town. Each case dismissed. Witnesses vanished. Records ended. Abruptly. But the pattern was there. Killings, disappearances, rituals, always around a charismatic man of similar description and age. Brian exhaled slowly. It's him. It has to be. Right there in the library, they set up a small camera and voice recorders. They told their story, how they started with a myth, what they witnessed in Nyandarua, the red robes, the shrine beneath the church, the strange markings, what they found in Kapenguria and in autumn. Brian edited the video meticulously. He inserted images from the priest's journal, the pages Wanjiku photographed, the newspaper clippings from the library, and even a few seconds of whispered conversations they'd recorded in Kapenguria. Afterwards, they left the library. They booked a small, nameless lodge, 10 kilometers away, to avoid being tracked. The next morning, they sent the full video to their editor at the newspaper. "We want this online in 2 hours," Brian said. "We'll share it with the police and other media right afterwards. But we don't know whom we can trust. Eliud's reach might even be inside our newsroom." The editor didn't hesitate. She called an emergency meeting with the investigative team. They watched the video, stunned into silence. As the footage ended, someone whispered, "We have to move. Now." The editor gave the order. Cut a 60-second version for social media. Everyone, editors, designers, janitors, even the cafeteria staff, post it with the headline, "Breaking: Sacrifices of the Mysterious Prophet Who Never Aged. Kenya's Darkest Secret Uncovered." Include the link to our platform. Phones buzzed. Desks were abandoned. In a wave of coordinated urgency, 45 staff members uploaded the short clip to WhatsApp, Facebook, Instagram, Telegram, TikTok. The full version went live 90 minutes after Bian and Wanjiku sent their email. Satisfied the story was finally out, Brian and Wanjiku waited 5 more hours. Then they sent the videos to 4 police stations in Nairobi and Nyandarua, several investigative bloggers, and 5 rival churches who had long opposed Eliud. Each message was the same. "We fear for the lives of those still in Eliud's compound. You must act now." They turned off their phones, switched SIM cards, Then they rented motorbike taxis and disappeared into another corner of Nairobi. Now that the truth about Eliud's church was out and the country knew, they chose to lay low, to watch and wait. The countdown had officially begun. Thank you for continuing with us on this journey. The story is far from over. Whispers are growing louder. And what comes next will change everything. If you think you've seen darkness, just wait for the next thrilling episode. And if you enjoyed this chapter, don't forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe so you won't miss what's coming. Got a theory or a question? Drop it below. I will read every single one. Until we meet again in Chapter 5, stay curious and beware the mysterious prophets.